Yeah, I'll just give them a little background. So, yeah, so NIST is actually releasing a newer version of this. It was supposed to be out, they always laugh and say in the fall. So they're always has a kind of a moving target. It was supposed to be last fall, and hopefully it'll be this summer, maybe this fall. But it will have a lot of the bugs resolved and some of the implementations that we've requested. And there's still quite a laundry list of things. And as you can see, there's a red disclaimer about being a work in progress and a constant state of change. So they are actively working on it. We have a really good contact that has helped really guide me through learning this. Between Caroline and Ricky, I was telling them earlier, it took probably a good 3 months, Ricky, to really get comfortable making changes and programming things without asking for assistance and being able to start helping others. So anyone can have access to this tool, and that's one of the beauties of it. It is open source out on the web. So anyone can create a username and use this to validate their own messages, which we've tried to propagate this out to some of the jurisdictions to start using. This website, if anyone's interested, it's probably easier just to Google NIST IGAMT, which, as you can see here, stands for Implementation Guide Authoring and Management Tool. So really, the whole point of this is to develop your own guides, whether it's ELR or in one case we did an LRI message. So anytime you get into this, you can create your own account. And once you do, you can, well, in this case, this is the authoring process. I'll show you this ultimately first. This is something that you most likely wouldn't need to do unless you were actually authoring documents. The whole point of this tool is to author these guides to export to the general validation tool, the GVT, which is located here. Again, this is open source. You can, excuse me, you can create an account. I'll try to go over this just a little bit because it's really tied into this, and this is the end user app. So if anyone's validating messages, this would be the place you would do it. And as you can see, we've created several profiles using IGAMT. We always start with a foundational profile, in this case, ELR. From there, we can expand and develop individual guides for flu, ARLN, CRE colonization. But within these, we have other programs as well, and I will show you those in the IGAMT. For flu, we really only have one profile. For ARLN, within that, you can see we have these other programs here as well. These are all created under what are called tool scopes. And currently, there are several tool scopes that can be utilized. We primarily, I have used everything under APHL. For testing purposes, I've been working on rabies as well, so I've created actually a different tool scope for that. So you can select whatever tool scope you need that's applicable to your program. I'm realizing that 30 minutes is not going to be nearly enough time. So really what we've done here is we've started authoring these guides. All these are implementation guides. The main one that we use right now is the ELR implementation guide, obviously for APHL. Frequently, I'm sorry, somebody's at the door. My apologies, 1 second. Okay. You can still hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. So this is the ELR guide. Frequently, what I do is I go in, you have several options here. You can edit the document. You can simply look at it you can make a copy or you can delete it. So frequently, as you can see here, we have February 12th, February 26th, 28th, March 2nd. I typically try to make copies once a week, every 2 weeks. It helps in case this file gets corrupted. In one case, 2 weeks ago, I made some changes to this with the rabies, and it completely affected the program. So I rolled it back because I'd made a copy that morning. So I simply rolled back to this copy. And once you're in, you can change the name back to current, whatever you need to do. So these are just copies that I've made of the original document. And you build on that document as well. So you'll always normally come in and work on this. Same with LRI here. I made the original, I made a copy of it. We don't use it quite as frequently. There's just 1 or 2 jurisdictions using LRI currently. So there's not a lot of work to update these at this point, and this is just for CRE. It kind of references some of the DART testing Gretel was speaking of. This is one that I tried to build early on and it didn't quite work, so I just decided to save it in case I needed a fallback on it. Again, when you start building these, there's some experimentation, actually quite a bit. You'll build out a rule. If it doesn't work, you'll have to roll it back. So let's actually go into the CLR. And there's a lot of waiting when you're building this. There's a lot of lag time to load this. It's rather large, so any changes sometimes can take 30 seconds, even a minute or two. So it's a little slow going at times. I'll kind of start here at the top. Some of the options you have here is you can connect, which basically you are connecting to the GVT and you're exporting whatever profile you want. So the ARLN ones are located here. They're listed separately. You can see rabies and VPD is still here at the bottom. So anytime you make changes, those changes are not propagated to GVT in real time. Once you get to a point where you feel you have made modifications, then you have to actually export it. So you would simply click on flip, you export it to whatever tool scope you want, and then it's automatically loaded into the GVT. And at that point, you can decide, once it's over here, if you want to make it private, where only you can see it and make changes, or if you want to make it public, open to the world to do whatever they want. So right now, I made rabies separately. I made it private because it's not ready for anyone to even remotely use yet. So I usually keep them private while we're working on them. Once everything's been proved, testing completed, then I'll move them over to the public domain. Another thing you can do here is you can actually export your profile that you build. You can export it as XML, which we currently use for the DART testing. They'll take this XML profile and load it into their system and use that as a basis. For their validations, you can also export it simply as Word or HTML, which isn't generally used as much. No one, even if you have created an account, these are technically private guides, implementation guides. So what you can do is once a user logs on, you can share it with someone. So you can see currently we have a few members that this has been shared with. So that's the only way you can gain access to it. And once you do, you can actually manipulate it and work on it as well. So a lot of these headings here, the metadata, I will shrink these. These are use cases that we don't particularly need. If you wanted to really author this, you could come in and write an introduction, and most of these are just free text. So you could write anything you want, your intended audience, your organization. If you were going to publish this, we might go in and fill all this out, and then you could export a real nice complete document. For our use case, we're not doing that.
Right.
So
So, sorry to interrupt.
Go
Just
ahead. No, please
HL7
interject anytime.
HL7 is actually trying to get people who are writing version 2 implementation guides to use this rather than writing them in Word and then converting them to PDF. So several of the newer public health related implementation guides have been written using IGAMT tooling.
Yeah, and they make it relatively user-friendly as well, and it is much like a Word document here. And then they provide the outline. So again, they kind of feed you the template. So it's a really good way to do it. There are also some preloaded documents that you can view that you could use as guides as well. So that's another option as well. I won't go back to show you some of the preloaded. It would just take time to load all those. So I'm going to kind of focus on what we've done here. So when you're building these profiles out, you always want to start with your foundation. And this is your main conformance profile. I'll minimize these for now. So you'll always want to start with the ELR foundation, as I was saying, and I'll let this load for just a second. So these are going to be components of the message that are going to be consistent for the most part with the programs, but at the same time, they really fall into the ELR published standards. And that's what we try to do. We're trying to match this to the published standard. And then at that point, once that's complete, then if we have specific programs that we need to modify, we can. So that's that's my main goal in this, is to make these really customizable for each program. So you will see anyone who's looked at some of the implementation guidelines that we have, whether they're for flu or ARLN, you'll recognize some of these features. We have the different components here. We have the different fields, the segments. We have the usage. We have the cardinality. We can change the length of the fields. We select which data type it's going to use, as well as assign it a particular value set. We can also select different predicates if we have a conditional usage. We can also write individual conformance statements as well. So let me kind of go down and explain some of this to you as well. So when you're looking at this left screen, this left side, this left pane, we're looking at message infrastructure, the different conformance profiles, which is basically customized segments. We have the main conformance profile. We have composite profiles, which these are after we build everything individually, we basically put these profiles together and build them out of the other components. In this section, we have segments and field descriptions. The pink, those are the segments that come pre-programmed into IGAMT. These are standards across the board. Anytime we have to change those, we have to actually create a flavor, which is really just a custom rendition of this. So anytime I've had to create a custom or the word flavor, it will be green. So you can see, to be consistent, I normally try to name this that we are using this for the ELR system, and I had to customize this. Some instance of customizing might mean I need a different usage. The cardinality might be specific for our use case. The length may need to be changed, or the value set might need to be different. So with these pink ones, the original ones that are standards, these cannot be modified in any form. So you can see, just kind of scrolling down, the green ones that I've had to change over time. The next section is data types. And all these exist, so it's not quite drag and drop, but once you're customizing, you can type in these fields and select them. So that's why we use those different flavors to build this out with. Same with data types. These are standard data types, but anytime we need to modify them, I don't know how long this will take to load. We create flavors, and then it will automatically create that in a green color so that you can see visually which ones you've had to create. Some of them I've created and then actually not needed to use. So they may just sit here. I usually try to delete them. You can't really tell looking at this what I've modified compared to the original document. But again, if you have any usages here, you can change them. It's quite easily to change this to required, conditional, optional, any of those features. Again, the length is modifiable here as well. If you go back and just look at the normal, let's say there's a CNN field, which is not quite as common having to change some of these. So if you look at the original CNN, all these are optional. The length is all 0, 15, 0, 50. So if you look again, we're going to switch back to ELR. And you have to learn to be very patient.
It's the NIST way of telling you it's time to walk around.
Exactly. Stretch your legs. Mandatory. So now you can see that these lengths are not just defaulted to 0 and 15. They're actually editable at this point. And again, the usage has all been changed. Here we have a couple of conditional. Again, you can pick the fields, whether they're required or not. And you can see over here, anytime you have conditional, you're going to have a predicate as well to help follow that conditional phrase. So these are all, again, based on either program specific or the ELR latest release. So we have all the data types down here. I'm going to keep scrolling down to kind of show you this left side over here. So the next part of this are the value sets. As you know, there's a lot of HL7 value sets, as well as many other types, such as FIPS and so on. So most of these are standards. It's rare that you have to really modify these. For administrative sex, when I was building out rabies, fortunately, we don't have to have a neutered category for humans. So I had to add this and modify this administrative sex. So I just took this field and added these extra 2, and then I will actually pull this in to the appropriate field. Another feature of all of these, whether they're value sets or not, you can click on them. It shows you the fields that will be validated and the description and the value in the message once you assign this field. And you can also hit this cross-reference button, and it tells you which segments are utilizing this value set. And it will actually tell you where it is. So if I have to modify this and change all the segments that are using this, because let's say we get approved for another gender would have to be added to this, then I would have to add that, actually create a flavor, add it, and then exchange every time this value set is used. I would have to reprogram next of kin to the new flavor, the PID, and the related PID ELR. So again, these are all value sets. You can tell there's not much green, so I haven't had to modify the existing HL7, which is good. We don't want to ideally have to modify a lot of these so that they stay standard. There is a way, though, however, to add additional value sets. A lot of these functionality is simply by right-clicking. So you can add a new value set yourself. You can add a new HL7. You can add one directly from FedVads, or what I normally do is I will create them or download them from a site, create a CSV file, and then upload it. So you'll be able to see down here, as we scroll down, you can see we have quite a few value sets to pull from. Here, all the ones in green are the value sets that I've actually created and imported. So we have quite a few. VPD has a lot of their own value sets. These are actually recently created. They haven't been implemented in the VPD yet, but we have a custom units of measure. We also use a custom race and ethnicity, which combines a couple of the value sets, so we had to create our own. We also have our own kind of an updated abnormal flags that we created. Again, these are just some random ones, some animal, country, counties, postal codes, FIPS code. So the only thing IGAMT comes preloaded with are the HL7 codes. They do not pull from anywhere else. So anytime we need anything additional, we either have to import it from a CSV, as I was stating, or create our own. And all these are user created. So I'm going to scroll back to the top here. I'm going to go over a little bit. I'm going to pause for a second. Does anyone have any? I know this is kind of fast and it's a lot of information, but does anyone have any just general or specific questions? Where's that enthusiasm I heard before we got started?
We're all on mute and can't find them.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, so once we create this main conformance profile, we have to decide if that main foundation will work for the individual programs. And we already know that it doesn't. So what we're going to do is we're still creating these profile components and customizing them to help facilitate message validation in a GBT. So one way we do that, for instance, let's take the MSH. We know that each of the MSH segments, let me bring this up, contain program-specific messages. So what we can do is just right-click. We're going to create a profile component. Once it comes up, it's really blank. I can pick whatever I want. So I'm going to choose MSH Candida, which I did. I created that. Once it comes up, you can add conformance statements. And this is where the customization comes in. So some of these conformance statements are foundational. Every single message will start with a pipe. Every single message, MSH2, will have the following information. 7.1 will always have the date in this format. One of the pitfalls, I'm going to say, from programming is these date and time formats are in what are called regular expressions, in regexes. They are not easily to program, and they're not really readable either. So when you get an error on the GBT side, the error will tell you that it doesn't fit this format. So we've put in a request to actually change that to make some of the errors more readable in human language. And even authoring them would actually be better than using regular expressions. And you can tell here we have 9.1 is ORU, RO1, ORU, RO1. So some of these that are specific, we start to get down here. In particular is always MSH 5 and MSH 6. MSH 6 always contains the program specific information. So that's the reason we have to have a specific profile component for every single program, because we want the jurisdictions, when they validate their messages or we validate, we want it to be program specific and be correct. So I'm going to go in and write a rule. And in order to write a rule, I have several options. We can pick a generic group. Okay, I have more furniture being delivered. I'm sorry. I'm going to go on mute just a second, okay? They're backing the truck up, so we're getting a new dining table. Like I was on The Price is Right for a minute. So they're delivering that to
Recording
the...
is back on, by the way.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you can go in and program each of these. So if you want to program something specific, you can actually do it for the entire segment, or you can peel back. In this case, we just want MSH 6. So what we can do is we just simply kind of move around until we get this crosshair. We drag this down. We select what we want the verb to be. Do we want the rule, the segment to contain something, to not contain it? Is and shall be, I'm not sure the difference. We always use shall be. You can use shall not be, should not be. So there's a lot of nuances here that I haven't completely figured out, but we generally shall or shall not be. So we can tell this to shall be, and we can do a custom, like a plugin that's programmed for us. We can do what's called a literal value. I can say that I always want this to be the word happy. 6.1 should always be happy. I can make it case sensitive if I choose, and then I can make this a happy rule, whatever we want to call it, and we can add it. So now we have a happy rule. Again, some of the issues with this is once we create a rule, you can never see it or edit it. Not the best way to have a tool. Ideally, I would be able to click, I can change the name of it, but I can't check what MSH 15 says. The only thing you can do is kind of Control A and copy it and paste it into a notepad to read it. But that's it. If you want to modify it, and you know, even here, if you had a typo and put ND instead of NE, you have to delete the rule and start over. There's really no way to modify it. So the screen doesn't get bigger. You can't scroll to the right, anything. So hopefully these are some of the enhancements that will be better down the road. Again, we've created this rule. We don't want this rule necessarily, so we're going to delete it. Another feature of this is some of these are what are called complex statements. This is simply taking several plain conformance statements and combining them. So we can say that we want this rule to be happy. We might have another rule that says, I want the word to be sad. So you can come here and you will actually drag these down and say, I want segment 6 to be happy or sad, because you can change this to be an or, and, if, then, or in some cases, all assertions have to be true in order for that to pass validation. So there's quite a few rules. Some of the more complex ones, I think I've done up to 8 different rules. So you have to write the rules separately, and then you have to combine them one at a time. So you would combine rule 1 and 2, and then once 1 and 2 is combined, you would drag down 1 and 2 and drag down 3. So once that's created, then you drag down the one that says 1, 2, 3, and then you drag down the 4th, and so on. So again, it's not completely as efficient. As you know, once you start using it, you could see some of these features could be enhanced, and you could just drag them all down or click them all to make them all true. So there are some nuances with doing that that are a little problematic. And also, if you save and then go back and try to write another conformance statement, the program locks up on you. So you have to hit saves in a certain order to get it actually to respond. So each of these profile components over here have been customized. You'll see MSH Candida has 10 rules. Most likely GC will also have 10 because we're using the same, MSH segments. However, we're just changing a few of the fields. And as we come on down here, our OBX fields are going to be different. As you can see, sometimes we can modify the segments to be specific for a program, or if we need to, we can break it down even further. So the OBX for ARLN works great for GC, Candida, and CRE, but it doesn't work for DHQP. DHQP has one extra rule that needs to be modified. And in addition, I get requests, particular like this case for DHQP, 19.1 may be required by all of the programs, but for DHQP, 19.1 is just RE. So I can actually create this profile and I can add items to it. Anything in yellow means it's been modified. So OBX ELR 17 uses a separate value set of AV166. The units here have been changed. I have a specific OBX3 ARLN list that I've imported. Here you can see time has been modified as well. I can still go in if someone wants to change anything and has a special request. I can go in and I can apply it to the entire foundational message, or I can apply a rule to just a specific field. So if we want to add something, we can hit the pluses here. The arrows just expand the menus, and once they are expanded, you can just click the plus and it will add the item to this specific profile component of OBX. So now I have it here. I can change it from optional, conditional, required, but empty, required. I can change the length fields, whatever I want to do, and once I change it, it should appear as yellow, which it does. So you can look at this and know that I changed this. You can see here I made a couple of conformance statements that apply directly to the entire actually message. Those are a little more complicated to get into at this level, but this is a good way to tell if anything's been modified. Once all these components have been built out, you can go in and build a composite profile, which really just means, let's discard these, which means you can build the specific profile. So let me get into here. So what you're doing when you're building a composite profile, this is kind of the last stage. This is, you're kind of homemade all these ingredients and now you're putting them all together to actually construct the profile that you're going to export. So let's just start with Candida here. And all these programs are going to be the ones that are mimicked in the GVT. So let's just say we want to create a new one. I'll show you. We're going to create a new composite profile altogether. We're going to name it, let's just do a new one. Let's just do rabies. So obviously, we're going to start with a foundation. That's what we created. That's going to be the foundation for every single profile. So we've created it. Now we're going to look at the profile components that we created specifically for rabies. These will override anything in the core profile. So let's look at some rabies that we created. All right, so here's an MSH rabies. We're going to add that to the profile. This custom MSH rabies is going to override any MSH in the core profile. That's the customization part. We can add specimen is also going to be unique for rabies. That's going to be different than we have for, let's say, flu. OBX is going to be different, so we're going to add that as well. So those are the only individual components that we had to change. Everything else is going to be built.
PID.
Oh, PID, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
PID.
I saw it. It's down there.
Oh, yep, right there. So now we're going to add PID. So now this profile, for all purposes, is ready to be exported. So you would just simply click create. I'm not going to, it's a test. But you can see here, I've already created this rabies profile. So it's going to contain everything that I just did. It looks like OBX is missing, but that's because I did it after. So we need to add the OBX to this. So we can actually go in and add a profile component to it. We're going to add that. And now we have a complete rabies profile. We're going to take this profile, we're going to export it. And to save time, I've already done that, like on the cooking shows. So we're going to go to rabies. I won't get into too much of context-free versus context-based. At this point, we're really just using context-free validation. And you're going to get two choices underneath here, test management to make some changes, or text execution, which is what we're going to do. We're going to do, this is still private. We're going to select a profile group. And in this case, you would simply paste the message here and validate. And you can pick your profiles. It looks like we're out of time, and let's see, I think
that was a great overview. And well,
okay,
let me
good. I've